Hey babes, my name's Hannah.
And my name's Chasity.
Welcome back to Bookish Babes. Today's an exciting video. We're going to be giving you guys our favorite books of 2021. We're just giving you guys our top 5. It was kind of hard to come up with 5. I had a very mediocre reading year. I'm pretty sure only a couple of these are 5 stars, but these are definitely these are all 5 of books that I've read that I would recommend to people.
Okay.
Yeah, what about you? Do you feel like you had a mediocre reading year, or did you feel like it was pretty good?
It's pretty good for me.
Yeah.
I'm really sad that I only missed my reading goal by 2 books.
So I have not tracked a single book on Goodreads since the spring or summer, so I don't know how many books I read last year.
I'm sorry.
I feel like maybe my goal was 50. My goal for 2022 was 60. My goal for last year was 50 though, and I read about a book a week, so I assume I'm pretty close to that. I don't know. I'll go back through and track them at some point and see how many I read last year.
My goal was 100 and I read 98.
That's honestly sad. I'm sorry. At that point, I would have just read short stories.
No, I mean, that's how I literally added 3 poetry books at the end.
Yeah.
Just because I was at 95.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could do it, but I didn't.
You did not do it. It's okay.
I just did not get there.
It's okay. We win some, we lose some. But these are our top 5. Now, mine are not in any specific order except for number 1. The other 4 could be interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of picked my top 2, and then the other ones could kind of be.
Yeah. Would you like to start, or would you like me to start?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll start.
Okay.
My number 1, or should we go? Yeah, I'm gonna start with my number 1. Was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Specifically, A Court of Mist and Fury. I was just gonna put down the ACOTAR series, but I want it to be known that Mist and Fury is my favorite. So that was my number 1. Like I said, it's the second book in the ACOTAR series. If you haven't read it, and if you've been living under a rock and you've never heard of it, please pick it up. It's very good. It's a fantasy, but very beginner level fantasy. We are going to do a whole book babble on it. If you watched our wrap up, which went up before this one, you'll know how we feel about it. But yeah, that's my number 1.
Following this theme,
yes.
My favorite of the year was A Court of Silver Flames. Mm-hmm. It came out this year. I could not wait because my favorite series is the Court of Thorns and Roses series. Mm-hmm. And I began the year by rereading the series in preparation for this book. And it definitely met my expectations. I was a little bit nervous because the main character for this one was not my favorite.
I haven't gotten to this book yet, and I'm not convinced that I'll feel the same way about it, but we'll see.
I really did love it. It definitely hit my heart.
Yeah.
And it definitely was my favorite read of this year. Mm-hmm. Also, according to Goodreads, was my longest read of this year.
It's a bulky book. The second one I want to talk about is just because it's your number 2 also, is A Witch's Heart. It was good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely my
really, really
that was the one that I was first certain was number 2 spot.
I don't read a ton of mythology, or retellings I should say of mythology. This was a retelling of Norse mythology story of obviously Loki and Odin, but it was much more mythology accurate in how they were brothers and it wasn't his son. Right.
They were blood brothers. Yeah, and it was much more about Boda.
Yes.
Boda.
I never know how to pronounce that name.
I don't know if I said it right or not. That's why I went with Boda first.
Yeah.
But I loved it. Oh, it was so well done. Mm-hmm. And her imagery and
the development
and just she did a really, really good job.
It was. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I remember reading it pretty quick. And
she pulled from so many different
so much of the lore. Yeah, it was definitely pulled from.
It was really, really good. It was really, really good. And plus, I only started recently getting into Norse mythology. I've read a lot of Greek mythology for years, but I've only recently started to get into Norse mythology. So for somebody who only loosely knew something for Norse mythology,
it did a great job.
It was a very good
you almost don't even need to know the mythology to understand the story.
Yeah,
it's very good for beginners who are not super into mythology, because I don't read a ton of retellings for that specific reason. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'd have to know everything about the story in order to understand what they meant, but this is not one of those where you need to know everything about it.
No.
But I think some people, like the people who didn't like it, went into it thinking it was going to be similar to like the MCU version of these characters, which it wasn't. It was very similar to the lore.
Yeah.
I appreciated that. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a good retelling.
I agree.
Yeah, but it was different enough that I didn't feel like I was like reading the actual story. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Like she took lore accurate characters and made it kind of a story that you hadn't read before.
I agree, which again is different.
Yeah.
Because people either stay
Either love it or
right,
hate it, yeah.
they like stay right there with the lore, or they go really close to like the MCU.
Yeah.
And it's one or the other.
And this was kind of its own thing.
Yeah,
it was cool.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was both of our number 2. The third one that I'm going to talk about is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I listened to the audiobook of this, and I'm really glad that I did because she was the one who narrated it.
It's a fantastic book.
It's such a good book, and it's because she is a fantastic writer. Outside, not only was this like a really interesting, I don't even want to say interesting story, but it was a story that I feel like everybody needs to listen to. It's just that she's a fantastic writer on top of it.
Yeah.
So, Chanel Miller is the woman who was raped by Brock Turner at Stanford. I'm sure you guys heard of the story when it was all over the news a few years ago. This was difficult to read, but very important to read. I think everybody should pick it up. It shows a little bit about her backstory, but it shows a lot of how she found out that she was sexually assaulted because she was unconscious when it happened. And it also talks a lot about what she went through during the trial and how it was absolutely heinous. It's inhumane. I don't know how in America, and the best country in the world, rape victims have to go through things like that to get justice, and then she didn't even get justice. You know, how they picked apart every moment of her past to try to discredit what she went through. It was, like I said, very difficult to read, but important because I think we all need to understand what victims go through in the justice system.
Yep.
So definitely, if you haven't picked it up, pick it up. It was insanely interesting and eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah.
This is so bad.
Why?
Then following that, the name of the next
Oh no. So, ignore the fact that I just talked about a book written by a rape victim because this is going to be a complete 180. Go ahead.
So following that, my next one that I wanted to say was actually the entire Anita Blake series. I specifically called out the first one, named Guilty Pleasures. Just fucking great.
Yeah, it's not a good idea to follow that one with that one, but it's fine.
But I did want to include the whole Anita Blake series because I really just can't pick one to fit on a 5-book list.
Yeah, right.
I don't even know where I'm at in the series, to be honest.
You're in the teens.
Yeah, I'm in the teens. I have no idea if I'm on like book 15, 16. I'm not sure.
That's crazy.
I think Incubus Dreams was the last one I read. I think. Not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. But really, this series, like, I haven't gotten into a series like this since Akatar. So I'm really, really deep in there to where like all I want to do is listen to that series. So that's probably why most of what you've seen on my reading wrap up is the series.
Yeah.
Because I just want to know what's happening. And I just really enjoyed those characters and the plot and the story development. I just want to be in that world. And right now that I'm taking kind of a little bit of a break from that world, I went back to Akatar. So
it's like one or the other.
I'm not doing so great over here on exploring other worlds. But definitely that's hitting my top 5. Vampires and shapeshifters.
Love that.
Oh my.
Yeah. The next one that I want to talk about, my number 4, is The Wrong Family by Taryn Fisher. You guys know that we are kind of diehard Taryn Fisher fans over here. I would read her grocery list. She's just such a great writer. This one was fairly different than anything she has written before. It was a thriller. It was less of a psychological thriller than her previous thrillers, but it was still very, very interesting. Still kept me on my toes. Still many twists and turns.
Yeah, she pissed me off with this one.
Why?
Because now every time I'm like, how the hell did something get moved in my house?
You think
I'm like, is there someone in my fucking house?
Yes, it follows this older homeless woman living in the house of what seems to be like a very normal, well-off family, and as she's secretly living there, she's learning their secrets, and they're not a very normal, well-off family. It's hard to talk about this book without spoiling it, so I think that's all I'm going to say on it, other than the fact that she's just, like, you can't lose picking up a Taryn Fisher book.
You really can't.
I didn't love this one as much as I loved The Wives, but I still really, really love this one and would highly recommend it. Like I said, it's less of a psychological thriller and more of just like a, what do you call it, like a domestic thriller maybe? Is that a genre?
Like a suspense.
Yeah.
Suspense, I guess.
Because it's less of like, you know, there's not necessarily any unreliable narration happening. It's more like she's uncovering this family's secrets as she's living there. And it's kind of secrets that you wouldn't have seen coming. It's very interesting. But no, yeah, I'm always convinced there's a homeless person living in the walls of my house.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like the other day, nobody was in my house. Nobody was home, and I came home and something was moved, and I was like,
she's here?
God damn it, Taryn.
Right.
God damn it, why'd you have to put that in my head? Mm-hmm. She has a new one coming out this year. And On the Sly. Mm-hmm. Did you see the cover?
Mm-hmm. Isn't it spring or summer? It's not until later in the year.
I don't know.
It's not. I know Colleen's is coming out beginning of the year in January.
Reminders of him.
Yeah, but Taryn's isn't coming out till later in the year.
I don't know. I don't know the date.
Okay.
I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Because I'm trying to get an arc right now.
Mm.
It's not going so well.
No.
I keep checking it. It's still pending. Yo, Taryn.
Let me read your book.
Let me read your book. What is the next one? Okay, so I can't pick one out of the series either. I'm doing really bad here. I'm not picking.
She's just putting down a whole series.
I'm cheating.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine because it's my list. I get to choose. But then the next one I said was Men of Bird's Eye by Kat Savage. So far, Hawk, Will, and Avery are out. Well, I don't even think Avery's out yet. He's coming out. Because I got an advanced reviewer copy, so I don't think he's out yet. Mm-hmm. But he's coming.
Okay. Avery is coming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, that's like top tier for me for this year. So good.
And you say it's all people who work at the same tattoo
studio?
studio?
It's about a tattoo studio. Hawk owns it, and the other two work there. And then there's one more, Hanson, that works there. His story is going to be coming too. So I really, really loved these books. You have no idea. Like, you have no idea. I bugged the hell out of Kat to write them. Like, literally. They're so fucking good. You gotta read them.
I do need to.
You have to read them. They're so good. I love them. They're just good. They're really, really, really good.
My last one is Darling Rose Gold. Stephanie Roble, I think is how you say her last name. This book messed with my brain. Not only do we have one unreliable narrator, we have two unreliable narrators.
Twisted.
And it switches point of view, and both of these characters are convinced that they remember the correct way that things happened, but they remember it very differently. And at the end you realize that they're both fucking crazy. They just really both are. There's one who's more evil than the other for sure, but they're both very chaotic. I was very stressed while reading this book. My anxiety was high. There was a lot happening. I kind of didn't know where it was going next. Basically, the premise of this book, without spoiling too much because it is a thriller, I always think it's best to go to the thrillers, mostly blind. It's about a young woman whose mother is now being released from prison after... It's sort of like a Gypsy Rose sort of story.
It's very Gypsy Rose.
She raised her child to believe that she was very sick her whole life, and then went to prison for stuff like that, for basically like poisoning her. And then she gets out, and the mother thinks that they're going to like rekindle and fix their relationship because the mother thinks that she's come to her senses and realized that she hasn't been poisoned her whole life, but the daughter has different intentions with her coming to live with her after prison. Wild.
Twisty.
Very wild. And she takes what she feels like is revenge for what she went through in her life. Yeah. It's crazy.
I still am not even sure what exactly happened.
I don't know, and there's so much of it because they both remember it very differently.
Yeah, there's still
I know
so
who
much
I
that
believe.
I still question a lot about that book.
Yeah, like is the person that I believe actually the one that was right? And does that justify what she did?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
She has
There's a lot.
one coming out too.
It's a lot, but if you haven't read Darling Rose Gold, please pick it up. It was great.
The last one I decided, which it's very hard for me to put 5 books on the list. I can't. I went back and forth on the last one many times. But I finally decided, and I'll probably change my mind tomorrow and decide that this was...
There are a lot of honorable mentions.
Yeah, for real. But I decided Mother May I by Joshua and Jackson was going to go in the number 5 spot.
This one was really good. I think I read it last month.
Really good. Really, really good. Yeah, we did a Bookish Babble on it. It's about a woman whose child gets taken by a witch. Not even a witch.
It's not supernatural at all.
It's not supernatural at all. But yeah, so she gets taken because of one reason or another, which...
It's all uncovered throughout the book.
Yeah, it's all uncovered throughout the book. She has to go through a series of different tasks to get her child back, and she has to uncover all these different things. And I really enjoyed the team that she had to work with her, the relationship of the people who came with to support her through this, and just the twistiness and the turns of the people like that were involved in it, and what she uncovered, and the other characters that like were introduced that connected to it, and how it ended.
Whew. The ending was crazy.
Whew.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was a lot. At no point during that book did I know what the fuck was happening.
I had no fucking idea what was happening.
Like, there were some things that I kind of almost guessed, but then like then something else would be thrown at me and I'm like, what the hell? Like, it was a lot. It's one of those that it's very twisty. So if you get overwhelmed by a lot of twists, because I do hear people like say that complain a lot, that might not be for you because there's always something else being revealed.
Yeah, that's definitely one that.
But I liked it. It was very fast paced.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an honorable mention for me. Didn't make it onto my top 5, but it definitely like probably my top like 7.
That's how I feel about like Darling Rose Gold.
Yeah.
The Wrong Family. That's why I didn't pick either of those for number 5 for mine, because they were on your list.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you hadn't mentioned Mother May I may have mentioned it. But The Witch's Heart was so good that we felt like we both needed to mention it.
Yeah, that was happening for sure. Because The Witch's Heart just, I loved it so much.
Great, yeah.
So those were our top 5 for 2021.
So wild that we're already at the end of that year.
That is insane.
Yeah.
I cannot. But you know what? That's fine. Because bye.
Yeah.
See you later. Don't come back. Thanks. But definitely comment down below and tell us what you read in 2021 and what your favorites were, if there were any honorable mentions. And as always, definitely hit us up with those recommendations. Not that we need them. Not that we need them.
Hundreds of books in my TBR, but it's a toxic trait.
Toxic trait. We're gonna keep going. It doesn't matter. Comment down below, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when we post. As always, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.